Yeah.
So after spending, I don't know, hundreds of pages of comments talking about the Lib Dems, the digital economy bill, and so forth, what's your feeling about the new coalition government?
What's my feeling about the new coalition in Britain? So British politics, for those of you who don't follow, just got really weird. We had an election. None of the major parties won a majority. So they have what's called a coalition government, which happens a lot in parliamentary democracies, except in England, where it's only happened twice. And neither time was it very successful. So the Conservative Party has formed an alliance with the Liberal Democrats, who are kind of unlikely bedfellows, except that they both have a kind of libertarian tendency, small L libertarian, like let's stop having mandatory surveillance and DNA databases of kids, and you know, all kinds of crazy super authoritarian measures, and more private prisons, and you know, longer jail sentences for minor infractions, and all of that stuff. So they've promised to sort of fix this all in like 30 days. They've got these enormous, enormous changes. They're going to take all of the anti-liberty laws from the last 15 years, 12 years of labor rule, and they're going to reverse them all really quickly. And so we'll wait and see what happens. If they do that, I'm going to be pretty excited. It remains to be seen what they're going to do to our social services. In England, we have pretty good social services, thankfully still, but we've also just given so much money to the banks that it's everyone who pays attention to this stuff says, well, you're going to have to cut somewhere, or raise taxes on bankers because they're making record profits just like here. But you know, you just spent all your money on you know, RBS, where you know, the Royal Bank of Scotland, whose CEO, who crashed the bank, retired with a you know, multi-million-pound pension that the taxpayer had to pick up. So it remains to be seen what they're going to do to our social services. I'm pretty in dread of this. The first dark inkling of a not very good outcome of this is that they've passed some extremely token but really mean-spirited anti-immigration rules. And as an immigrant to the UK, I'm pretty attuned to this stuff. So the UK is part of the European Union. And so that means that anyone from the 25 or so European states can move to the UK without a visa, right? So they can just come, which is great. It's been really great for our economy. We've had an influx of cheap skilled workers from Eastern Europe, where there's been a real downturn, and it was great. It was very vibrant and so on. And then, so this is like 99% of UK immigration. And there's this tiny fraction that's non-UK immigration, like me. And they've just, because there's all this hysteria, like some of it, frankly, neo-Nazi hysteria, like the British National Party, who are Nazis. They're not like I don't like you, therefore I'm going to call you a Nazi. They are actual Nazis. You know, there's this kind of groundswell of anti-immigrant sentiment, and so to do something about it, even though they can't do anything about the total number of immigrants coming in, because even if you shut off all non-EU immigration, you would not really slow immigration at all, because almost all of it comes from the EU. They've decided to cap non-EU immigration. And that sounds kind of sensible, except it includes spousal visas. So if you're British and you marry a foreigner, you can't come home, or you have to leave your spouse outside of the country if the quota has been met that year, which just seems to me to be like extremely poorly thought through, mean-spirited, and really just nasty. And I think we're seeing, I mean, I don't have to tell people who live in this country that there's a groundswell of really mean-spirited anti-immigrant sentiment all over the world that seems to be getting worse. I mean, we've got it in Canada. I discovered to my horror and shock when my daughter was born that she's not a real Canadian. The Canadian citizenship she has is a second-class Canadian citizenship because she was born overseas, and her kids won't be Canadian. So other real Canadians, their kids are Canadian. That's why she's Canadian. But second generation born abroad are not. And the answer that they always give me when I ask them about this is, well, if her kids are born in Canada, they'll be Canadian. It's like, yeah, if she was a Martian and her kids were born in Canada, they'd be Canadian, right? I mean, that's what it means to be born in Canada, is you are Canadian. And again, like this, no one can point to any real problem of like second generation Canadians born abroad coming home and like taking all our jobs. Like this doesn't exist. But if you want to be a demagogue and throw a sop to like crazy racist anti-immigrant people, you can take a group that has absolutely no political authority whatsoever, which is children of Canadians born abroad. So like their parents don't get a vote and they don't get a vote, and you can kind of demonize them or penalize them. So it's part of a larger and really scary global trend that I don't know what to do about. Maybe that'll be my next YA book. If there's a young person who has a question, this is your last chance, and then I will sit down.
I'm asking for my daughter.
Okay, by all means. Hi there. Hi.
She's looking for a picture book from you.
A picture book from me. You know, they're hard picture books, right? It's a lot easier to pick. Well, there's my graphic novel. Yeah, I wouldn't give that to a 6-year-old.
Vampires and werewolves, that's what they play in the playground.
Cool. That was one of the first things I taught my daughter. You know, what sound does the cow make?
She's
Missing her fangs. Wicked. I taught my daughter, you know, what sound does the cow make? Moo. What sound does the werewolf make? Woo. What sound does the goat? What sound does the vampire make? Blah blah. You know, I think it's like a lot easier to write 100,000 great words than 30 awesome words, and that's the thing about picture books is that they've got. Well, maybe someday. I never say never, and you know, I love reading books to my daughter, but she's only 2.5, so she's not yet at the point where she likes to have a sustained story. She's into books with, you know, lots of pictures of things that she thinks are cool, which we can then talk about on the page, which is really nice. You know, what's that? What does it do? What sound does it make? What do you think it's doing there and stuff? But she's not at the point yet where we have like a sustained story, which I can't wait for, because I'm also really waiting to subvert those stories too. When I was a kid, my dad, who's a Marxist, my dad used to tell me the Conan stories, except he replaced them with a multiracial, gender-balanced trio called Harry, Larry, and Mary, who would vanquish the evil, like, theocratic tyrant who, you know, worshipped the evil serpent god, and then replace him not with, like, Conan's Rule, but with like Workers' Paradise. So I can't wait to do stuff like that with my kid. It's going to be so much fun. And when I finally picked up Conan on my own when I was like 9 or 10, I was like, I know these stories. Wait a second! So thank you by proxy for your question. Can you pass that back? All right, so I'll sign books here and anything else you brought, and anything I always say. Oh, is there another kid with a question? Yeah, go ahead. Which of my books should you read? Well, I've only written 2 books that are for young people. I don't know what your personal maturity level and stuff are, but I would start with one of those. Little Brother is the first one, and it's in paperback. And For the Win is the one that's just come out. And Little Brother is kind of about kids who kind of play spy, and For the Win is about kids who outsmart grown-ups in different ways using video games. So I guess to your own taste. Here, do you want to pass this one back to her? Sure. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I'll be sitting here. I'll sign anything except adoption papers, and say hello.